So having, dealt with all that, having self-published, obviously you're going to probably have a personal desire toward, or a personal favoritism towards the self-publishing route, I would imagine. Okay. And I'm curious, what are the things that you have found the most difficult, or the biggest hurdles in making that happen for yourself? Obviously, you've been in the industry and you've done it a few different times. Have things even changed as far as that question goes in the past 20 years?
As far as self-publishing, you mean? Well, it's the changes in technology are you have to keep up with. Um, it's funny, when I started self-publishing, that was right around the time the first few print-on-demand comic book printing companies started popping up online. And at first, they didn't exactly have their materials figured out yet. I think a lot of us who were early adopters of those services were kind of like their guinea pigs, because the first couple batches of books I self-published through them were not the greatest quality. And it took a few rounds before I think they figured out how to do it best. And eventually we got to a place where they were nice products, but that took some getting used to. And that's very frustrating when you spend a certain amount of money and then the books come back and they're just not, the printing is bad or whatever. That just breaks your heart. There's always a scary feeling when you get that box in the mail of the copies from the printer, and you opened it up to see how they turned out. And
what's going to be wrong with this?
Yeah, what's going to be wrong with it? What tiny minute thing is going to be wrong with it that I'm going to have to look at for the rest of my life? It's going to drive me crazy, but it's not worth redoing the whole print run over. There's things like that. So that's a challenge, but that has gotten better and better and easier to navigate. And of course, there's the experience of just doing it over and over again. You you get the hang of it, and you kind of understand what they're asking for when you fill out that form with all the different paper stocks and things like that. And you know how much to order and things like that. For this time around, the challenge was just learning the ropes of the crowdfunding campaign website. I'd never done an IndieGoGo or crowdfunding thing by myself before. I'd always been part of a team where the publisher basically set it up. And so it was a little bit of a learning curve there. And I looked at IndieGoGo first, and there were aspects of the way that one was set up that were a little bit confusing to me at first, having never done it before.
I remember an IndieGoGo not liking it very much.
Okay, well, yeah, and also their customer service just struck me as non-existent. I mean, I would get stuck on a technical part and send them a question, I'd never hear anything back. And then everyone I knew kept recommending FundMyComic.
Well, the big difference, obviously, is that Luke is a guy who cares deeply about this stuff. My bigger fear with IndieGoGo is always the politics of the company itself, which have all too often interjected themselves into the material that they're willing to push or allow, like people getting shadow banned and things like that.
Yeah, and I haven't even entered into that minefield yet. I don't even know about that yet.
I don't know that you would, honestly. I don't know your politics, and it's probably for the better. I don't know why we need to know each other's politics. You make a cool horror comic. Can't we just leave it at that?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I care about, is telling monster stories and drawing monsters. But yeah, so there was a learning curve with figuring out the crowdfunding website. But like you said, Luke is right there. He answers direct messages very quickly. And they have great tutorial videos that help you walk through it and figure it out. So, but also I felt like just the setup, even before I got to my questions, was much more straightforward and user friendly. So there was a learning curve there, but it was all right. I suppose the next big hurdle will be when the campaign wraps up and I have to do fulfillment. That'll be a new experience, but I'm already setting up for that. I've already been bagging and boarding issues and and signing things and getting ready. So hopefully take some of that.
How many? I'm curious. How many custom covers have you had to do yet?
Custom covers? Oh, you mean like the sketch covers?
Uh, yeah, the perk cover.
Oh yeah. I'll just show that off real quick. So that's one of the perks I offer on the campaign, these blank variant sketch covers. You order one of those, and I will do an original drawing on them.
I tried to get the wife to let me.
Yeah. A one-of-a-kind Wolf and Batsy sketch just for you, and it's on issue 7. That's one of the perks on the campaign.
I am curious as a fan as to why you chose issue 7.
I didn't. The publisher chose that. That was when I was still with the publisher. Issue 7 was kind of a fan favorite issue. It was, if I can find it in my little stack of books here, it was an issue called The Gorilla Suit Maniac.
Okay, I gotcha.
Long story behind that one, but basically Wolf and Batsy end up battling a guy in a gorilla suit who's also an axe murderer.
It's a fun book. Well, it's fun because
Yeah.
it certainly breaks the narrative that you've had going for the first couple issues and gives you something different.
So yeah, that was the idea too, was to throw some one-shot single issue stories into the mix to sort of break up that ongoing narrative. But yeah, so I guess maybe because that issue was well liked, or maybe just because it was the right time, that was the one that was chosen to be a sketch cover. No other real reason behind it. But yeah, I think I offered 15 of those on the, and I think so far 5 of them have.
Well, I'm glad. Like I said, I tried to talk the wife into it, and she's all like, "Your kid's birthday," and I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll take care of the kid, I guess."
Oh yeah,
Fine.
I know about that.
If I didn't do that, I was gonna have to cut into the rest of my comic book budget for the month.
Oh man,
Sorry, Brian.
that's all right. That's all right.
So we've kind of reached the end here. I'm sure I couldn't talk to you forever about all this stuff because it's super interesting to me, and meeting someone that I actually have combined interests with is always fun. What would you like to leave people with? If there's like one recommendation for someone who's new to being a creative and trying to get out there and do their thing, what would be like your one word of advice?
My word of advice would be, if you want to create a comic book of your own, I would say the first thing is to come up with some characters that you will never get bored of in a million years. For me personally, that was a werewolf and a vampire. I can think of a million stories about werewolves and vampires, and if they're running around together as friends, that's even better. I'll never get bored of that concept. I'd say come up with characters that you'll never get bored of, and then before giving into the temptation to jump into a big, long, epic story about them, I would suggest just do a little short 10-page story about them. Take them for a test drive and see if you really like them. At the end of those 10 pages, you'll know if you want to stop, if this is not for you, or if you want to keep doing more.
Right on. And where can we send people to learn more about you, or even better, to pick up their own copies of Wolf and Batsy?
I have a website, bryanbaugh.net, bryanbaugh.net, all as one word. And has a store page. And on that store page, you can order the first 9 issues, the back issues I just showed. There are a couple of sketch covers on there as well. And then the current campaign, if you want to pre-order issues 10, 11, and 12, is on FundMyComic under Wolf and Batsy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this us today. And you have a good one.
Hey, thanks for having me.